heretic. It's a word people throw around easily. It's even been thrown at me recently, once or twice. But here's a real question. When does disagreement become heresy? When does error cross a line? Because not every mistake is heresy, but some things are. And if we can't tell the difference, doctrine doesn't mean anything. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching, from wherever you're watching. Welcome back to In, With, and Under. This isn't about arguing online or scoring points. It's about clarity. Not every theological mistake is heresy. Christians can misunderstand Scripture. Christians can be wrong. But historically, the church has distinguished between error and heresy, and that distinction matters. But we can only speak of error and heresy because doctrine exists. Doctrine isn't a checklist. Doctrine isn't an invention. It's clarification. Doctrine is Scripture faithfully summarized, the organized teaching of the Bible. It is not above Scripture. It is derived from Scripture. It is refined when challenged. It is the codified confession of what Christians believe with Scripture at its core. Doctrine exists because Scripture is rich, layered, and sometimes complex. There's different genres, different voices, and false teachers rise, questions surface. So doctrine organizes, doctrine clarifies, and doctrine preserves. Two of the earliest major clarifications concerned the Trinity and the divine nature of Christ. The Trinity wasn't invented in the 4th century. It was articulated to protect what Christians had always confessed: the identity of the Son, the reality of salvation, and the witness of the apostles. Now, error is a misunderstanding. It's correctable. It's teachable. Within orthodoxy, error can live inside the church without destroying it. Apollos in Acts 18 is a perfect example. Educated, sincere, but incomplete. He was corrected privately. That's error, not heresy. Heresy is different. Heresy is a persistent rejection or distortion of apostolic teaching. It replaces God's truth with human philosophy. It builds a new framework. Error makes a mistake. Heresy reshapes the structure. Historically, the church distinguishes between someone holding an incorrect idea and someone obstinately rejecting correction. The New Testament warns about this clearly. Paul warns about another gospel. John warns about those who deny who Christ truly is. Peter warns about destructive heresies that even deny the Lord. These aren't trivial mistakes. They're not about semantics. They're about identity, truth, and salvation. We see this explicitly with those examples. Galatians 1, 6 through 9, another gospel. 1 John 2, 22, 23, denial concerning Christ. And 2 Peter 2, 1, destructive heresies. The apostles didn't treat every mistake as heresy, but they treated corruption of Christ's identity is deadly serious. The early church confronted Arianism not because they liked arguing, but because the gospel itself was at stake. Because a mere human cannot redeem the world, and a mere prophet cannot claim authority over all creation. Christ is divine, co-eternal, fully God and fully man, the arbiter of all salvation. And that's the apostolic witness, confirmed by Scripture, confessed by the early church, and handed down through 2 millennia of faithful tradition. Denying the use of Scripture and historic witness. To define doctrine is like telling a constitutional scholar that cannot reference the Constitution or 2 centuries of case law, but must instead rely on an anti-constitution book full of opinion to understand what's lawful and constitutional. Appeals to the source and its historic interpretation are not evasions. That's how every serious interpretive tradition functions. Here's a crux. If doctrine doesn't matter, heresy cannot exist. And if heresy cannot exist, the gospel has no shape. Christianity has always been defined: a real Christ, a real gospel, and real boundaries around both. Doctrine exists to guard the gospel. Error should be corrected gently. Heresy must be recognized firmly. If the Son is created, he cannot save. If doctrine doesn't guard that truth, then doctrine serves no purpose. The apostles corrected error gently. When the identity of Christ was at stake, they drew a line. The task isn't to invent something new. It's to remain faithful to what was handed down. Because there's nothing new under the sun. Godspeed. If you found this helpful, or if it annoyed you in a productive way, hit like, subscribe, and share it. That's how this channel stays alive and how confessional Lutheranism doesn't get drowned out online. And if you disagree, do it in the comments, but do it honestly. Read what we confess before telling us what we believe. And if you want to help support the channel beyond likes and shares, I do have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee. Those links are in the description. They help cover time, research, and production. And they keep this channel focused on confessional content, not chasing trends. So, until next time, God bless.